Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of what... I'm just fulfilling a fantasy. You've always wanted to have a clone, so here I am. No, you got that mixed up. If I have a fantasy of having a clone, that clone is going to be in there doing my dishes or doing some laundry. I don't want to do that. Help with boring. I don't want to do that. Listen, it doesn't take two of us to do this. Listen, you're not the boss of me. You're not. Not the boss of me. What am I going to do with you? It is not necessary. Here now. Please, you're not the boss of me. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Listen. Okay. Listen. If we're gonna do this, let's do it together. We'll take turns. You take a point, I'll take a point. And then we'll do it like that, okay? Does that sound reasonable to you? Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Weathering Autism. In this episode, we kind of want to sum up what we've been discussing in our series on Mythbusters. And so this episode is entitled Myth-o-logy. And it's just a collection of myths. And we've been talking about a lot of myths, and we just want to quickly go over some that we haven't discussed so far. And so I will do that when we return. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back. The first myth we want to discuss is the opposite of a myth that we discussed earlier. In the episode entitled Dumb and Dumber, we talked about how all autistic people are not idiots, as people would presume them to be. That they have no understanding, that they're unable to learn. We know that that's not true. Conversely, there are people who think that everyone with autism is a genius, or a savant, as they call it. And in many cases, this is how some autistic people are portrayed in the media. But just like all autistic people are not dumb, not all autistic people are geniuses either, or savants. And so that is a myth.
Have you ever wondered whether all people with autism are geniuses? Well, in fact, only 10% of the population are savants. They have extraordinary skills that you don't normally find in others. Take Ping Lin, for example, a 23-year-old Malaysian artist who paints so brilliantly and is known for his art all around the world. And I'm sure many of you know who Clarence Kang is. Clarence is an extraordinarily talented pianist. Not only is he capable of reading difficult piano scores, but he has also composed his own music and done several transcriptions to original pieces. The truth about autism is that it is a spectrum disorder and it affects some people more than others. According to Autism Speaks, about 60% of the autism population have a cognitive impairment, and in reality, only 10% of the autism population have outstanding savant ability.
This next myth is a biggie. And I know for me, when my son was first diagnosed with autism, this was getting a lot of traction as far as what is the cause of autism. And that is that immunizations cause autism. I know I was sent some information concerning a possible class action suit or against whoever, I don't know, those who make the immunizations and the dermasol that is in the immunizations that people really believed caused autism. And but now we know there have been many studies that have determined, they've all come to the same conclusion, that immunizations do not cause autism. Of course, again, the origin of autism is still unknown. But that's one thing that people across the board believe we can put to bed, that immunizations or shots do not cause autism, particularly the MMR shot.
I don't think there is an other side here, frankly. You know, we get so used to this discussion about this side and that side. The two sides could just be simply the right side and the wrong side. We don't know what causes autism. I mean, that's fair to say. We're not sure as a scientific community what causes autism, but we know that vaccines do not.
Right.
And I think it's just important to say that as succinctly as I just did, and not to say, look, I'm going to delay the vaccines. You hear doctors coming out and saying, you know, it's okay, let the parents choose. Of course, I'm a parent. I have 3 kids. I made that choice. I got them vaccinated on schedule, on time, to protect their health and to protect the health of the people around them. I also want to show you one other thing here, and this is a little bit of a nuanced point, this other graphic I have, looking at the way that we used to vaccinate in the past, how we vaccinate now, and look at how autism rates have sort of changed since that time. If we can put that graphic up. But basically, it's showing that in the past, look back there in the 1960s, we gave a lot more in terms of vaccine load to kids' bodies. Look at 3,500 times more. And then at some point, sort of in the late 90s, we started to give lower doses of vaccines to try and get the same results. But here's my point. Throughout that time, autism rates continued to go up. So despite the fact that the vaccines themselves have gone down in terms of amount, autism rates have gone up. So there really is no link. So one could make the argument that vaccines have actually been protective against autism. So it's really, there's nothing there. And I worry about that as a father, and I gave my kids vaccines. I think that's really important.
The final myth we want to discuss today is the fact that autism is not a disease or a mental illness. And that's pretty much a hot button issue today, as there are different discussions going on even now in the psychological community as far as what is categorized as a mental illness. And many have come to the conclusion, there are still others who are in disagreement, however, that autism is not a mental illness. It is a neurological disorder, and it is even more so a behavioral disorder. And so it has been set in a different category than mental illness. And so some don't believe that. I do believe that, you know, it's not a mental illness. But there are others who are really disputing this and saying that people who are part of the community of autism are trying desperately to separate themselves from others who have been categorized as being mentally ill, to not have to carry that stigma, because there is still a great stigma these days that's attached to mental illness. And certainly I understand their concern with that. But I think when you look at the whole definition and how the psychological community has defined a mental illness, that you can't just stick autism in there. And it's difficult to do so because, again, autism is a spectrum. And so you have people that have different things going on in their lives, but they're still on the spectrum. And so you may look at somebody who's at the lowest end or even at the highest end of the spectrum, and they may somehow fit in that category of mental illness. But if autism is a mental illness, for one, it needs to be a mental illness for all. And it just doesn't quite fit. And so that's the majority of those in the community have said autism is not a disease. It is not a mental illness.
We're talking about the autism spectrum disorder, and I want to add someone to the conversation here to discuss this with me, and this is Dr. Frank Lawless. Now, Dr. Lawless is the chairman of the Dr. Phil Advisory Board. We have an advisory board here of the top minds in psychology, psychiatry, medicine, sociology, theology, all of the different disciplines. And Dr. Lawless is the co-founder of the Lawless PvP and Peace Center. He is also author of the Autism Answer. And the Autism Answer is a really important book because I believe Dr. Lawless is one of the foremost autism experts on the planet. And he's joining us via Polycom right now. Dr. Lawless, when we talk about the autism spectrum disorder, you talk about the diagnostic triad, and we're going to put that up and talk about that. And Dr. Lawless, you say the diagnostic triad, the first is there is a lack of social skills, correct?
That is absolutely correct, and that comes from a neurological diagnosis as well. So we're not only talking about behavior, but we're also talking about some of the causes.
Right, and this is a manifestation of a brain mechanism referred to as mu.
The mu manifests itself when you have this kind of lack of ability to deal with social skills, and is one of the major features of autism.
So what we're saying is there's a neurological thing here, Lori, where people that are on the spectrum, they don't have the ability to look at what's going on around them and say, this is successful behavior, I could emulate this. That's how we learn social behavior, and that's not something that folks on the autism spectrum can do, and that's a neurological deficit. It's not psychological, it's neurological. So just because someone's on the autism spectrum, don't make a mistake of thinking that they're not intelligent and cannot say what they mean and mean what they say. True?
That's absolutely true, and it's very important to know, again, that's a neurological issue, not a total psychological maladjustment.
Our inspirational moment this week comes from author Max Lucado. And the quote reads, "God never said that the journey would be easy, but he did say that the arrival would be worthwhile." I like this quote because life is not easy. But if we hang in there, it will be worth it. Don't give up. I want to encourage you today, mom, who is raising your child with autism. Things will get better. Hang in there. Trust and believe. Hold on to God, and he will make a way for you. And in the end, you will rejoice at what he will do in your life and the life of your child. So thank you once again for joining me for another episode of Weathering Autism. Next time we meet, we'll be starting a new series of videos. And so I want to tell you how much I appreciate you tuning in every week. Please subscribe, like, and share the channel, especially if you know someone that could really use the content, or anyone who wants to learn more about autism. I've had people tell me that they're appreciative of the information that is shared here, and they really are learning something from it. So I thank you for that. Again, thank you for joining me. Until next time, have a great one. Bye. Say bye, dummy. What are you doing with those shades on? You look dumb with the shades on. We're inside.